So now we're going to get into glazing. And what glazing is it's creating a thin, transparent layer of paint where you are optically mixing the colors with your eyes. So now instead of physically pre-mixing the paint, we're going to start with a dry layer on the bottom of the painting, and we're going to put a layer of thin, transparent paint over top. So we are actually mixing paint, but not physically. So here's the number one thing, if you remember anything from this demonstration about glazing, is the bottom layer must be dry. That is the most important thing. So the next piece about glazing is choosing the paint color. So there's basically two general categories with paints. Again, I'm making things very simplified and broad. Paint and color and all these things I'm talking about can be very complex, but we want to keep them simple so that you get the idea and you can work with it. So basically there's mineral or historic paints, and then there's the modern colors, okay? So when you look at a historic color, they're often quite opaque. So this would be like a cadmium yellow or a cadmium red, and the pigments are large and they don't let a lot of light go through. So they're very opaque, okay? So these, an example is cadmium, another would be, say, ultramarine blue, okay? So, and a beautiful one, I love this color, but it's very opaque, is Naples yellow. Anyone ever use that?
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful, it's very opaque. All of these colors don't work very well for glazing, okay? What work great are the modern colors. So the modern colors were paint pigments that were chemically synthesized, and they're a lot, some of them are they're different sizes, but they're a lot more transparent and smaller. And so the light can go through. And here's how you tell with the modern is they have the funnier names like phthalo. I'm probably spelling it wrong here. It's, or quinacridone. Some of you have quinacridone. Okay, I'm sure my spelling is incorrect. The Nico Azo gold or transparent red iron oxide. Okay? All of these paints let light pass through, so they're more transparent, and so these are the paints you want to consider when you're going to be doing layers of glazing. And that is for the mineral historic colors that we talked about in the beginning. These are like ivory black or Mars black, and these are very opaque. If you're glazing, you want to use a more transparent black, and so in this case, you would want to use carbon black. If you're using chroma, if you look at the top, they've got some black lines and a swash. Okay, so tell me, is this going to be a good glazing color?
Yes. No.
No. No.
No.
Because you can barely see the black lines through it. Can I have another color? Do you have a quinacridone or a...
I just
Great, perfect. Now, so here's ultramarine blue. Remember we talked about ultramarine blue. It's got big pigments, it's opaque. Now compare this to quinacridone magenta. See how you can actually see the black lines through.
Okay.
So there you go. So this is your ticket. You don't have to remember any of this lecture. All you have to do is look at the little color swash on the front of your paint and you'll know, is this good for glazing or not? It's transparent, so yes it is. Okay, so both chroma and golden are really nice and they do this. Unfortunately, Steveston, and I think you've got some Steveston paints. Is that true? Yeah, they don't do it, but you could make your own swash. Just take a dab of paint and put it over some of the writing on the bottle. And what that does is it gives you the undertone of the paint, and that's going to tell you how transparent it is when it's a thin layer. So this is my little toolkit. I always have paper towel. I like to have a nice stiff round brush for mixing. I always pre-wet that. And then I really like, these are fairly cheap, the wash brushes. that are nice and soft that I showed you on the first day, and these are fabulous for glazing. Then the other thing I have in my toolkit is, you know when you buy those disposable soups? Okay, I keep all the buckets. These things are great, and I use these for making glazes. Okay, so I'm going to use some quinacridone Nicoeso Gold. I know it's good for glazing, and I'm going to put about a dime's worth of paint. Whoops, way too much, no worries. Okay, I wanted to put a dime. Pretend that's a dime. Then what I do is I spray it with water, and I'm diluting the paint. At home I have one of those big sprayers, so what I really want to do is dissolve this paint into the water. This is the first part that I do. See how this dissolved really beautifully? That's a sign of a really good quality paint. So the pigments are dissolved throughout. And now I'm going to add the polymer medium. Okay, this is the brand I like the best. It's the Liquitex. It's called Gloss Medium and Varnish. It's not a true varnish, it's just a polymer medium. Golden also makes the same product, but they put a chemical in it to slow the drying time, a retarder, and I don't want that with what I do. 1 part liquid acrylic paint, then spray it with water, and then 5 to 10 parts polymer. So the more polymer medium you add, the more transparent your glaze is going to be. Now I added quite a bit of paint here because it's sort of, you know, blobbed out. And now I put the polymer medium in, and now I'm going to mix it. So I'm actually mixing fairly carefully because you can see bubbles are forming. I don't really want the bubbles because they tend to stay. Sometimes you can bang it a bit like this. Oh, it works beautifully. It gets the bubbles out. Or if you do end up getting bubbles on your painting, just blow them and they'll go away. Because otherwise they'll dry like that and you may not want it. Okay, so now I've made my glaze, and let's play. So I'm priming my brush, I'm getting it wet, and I'm using this foam here, and this part's important. You don't want too much extra water on your brush, because what it will do is create foaming, and then you get even more bubbles. And unless you want that look where your paint is dried and there's bubbles all in it, then you want to get rid of the excess water. So this is a glaze of quinacridone Nicoeso Gold, and you can see it's transforming this painting quite incredibly with the colors. Look at this, isn't it beautiful? So now we're starting to get this other color. What we're doing is we're mixing, and it's a whole other color through the glaze. Now it will look a little different when it dries. Okay, when acrylics dry, they are a wee bit different, but it's just, and I like sometimes to drip it. That can be fun, just to make it look like contemporary and all that. So that's something else to think about. And then if you have a sea sponge, and I do like the real sea sponges for this too, is sometimes with your glaze it's nice to sort of round the edges out. Now we're thinking in terms of bringing layers in together. We have this rather sharp line here. Maybe we want to melt it into the painting here, and so that the glaze is like some of it kind of thickened here on this layer. So it's something to think about. You could even rub it in. You could take some glaze, and where you have white here, you could just rub it in there. It's very thin. That's even thinner, like that. So just thinking about applications, and like maybe I wanted some of this original bits to show through here. So I'm thinking about that. Let's do another painting with this same color to see what happens. So obviously you can use any of the colors. That's not making too much a difference, maybe when it goes over the yellow. Yeah. So this is just adding, again, we're adding depth, we're adding interest into your work, and then you can go back and decide what do you want to show through. And you could also rub with a paper towel. You can use a sponge. These are different things to consider with your glaze. You could even do what I was doing here, spray it, and then let it drip a bit. And just play with it. And this is when it's nice to have these boards, so that if it is a bit wet and you sort of like this drippy look, that you want to keep it like that, you keep it flat and let it dry. So another tool I want to put in your toolbox is the concept of a clear glaze. So you could just actually take some polymer medium, and you want to use a clear brush here so we don't get any color. Now again, I'm making sure I get rid of that excess water.
My feeling is, given the conditions,
And you could just do a clear, this is a gloss polymer medium over the whole thing. This is going to make colors more vibrant and pull the painting in together. And again, this is a glaze, but it's clear. Isolates this one area, because I really like this painting, to be honest with you. I'm excited about where it went, so I'm sort of preserving that, and then I can come back to it and decide where I want to go. And see how it sort of made things pop a wee bit. It is wet, so it's going to pop more, but you can really start seeing some of that, the lines and the grays and the contrast. Quite beautiful.